Welcome to the session on data communication. In this particular video, we will try to explain protocol layering with different scenarios. We will talk about TCP/IP protocol suites, and we will also discuss about OSI reference model. So here are the objectives of the subject and the course outcomes, the reference textbook. In data communication and networking, a protocol defines the rule that both the sender, receiver, or all other intermediate devices need to follow for effective communication. It means that whenever there is a communication which is happening, we need to have a set of rules which has to be followed by each and every individual. Now let us take a simple scenario where two persons are talking to each other, as depicted in the diagram. When communication is very simple, we need not follow many complicated protocols. It can be a simple protocol. For like in this case, let's assume that two individuals are talking to each other. The protocol or the norms what we need to send over here is a common language. We need to decide upon the language in which the communication needs to happen, and there is no specific requirement for complicated protocols over here. In the next scenario, we will try to understand a complex communication concept. So, in the second scenario, let us look at a complex communication. For example, I need to send a mail from my computer to some X person's computer. So here we require a set of different layers. For example, let us try to understand the concept behind it. Now, when I want to type an email or I want to send a text document from my computer to someone else's computer, then to capture this email or to capture this plain text, I require one particular protocol. Okay, I require one particular protocol. In this diagram, you can see on the left hand side that is the layer 3. Now, once I type in an email, it will be sent across through internet, and it might be visible to someone else. So I need to either encrypt it while sending and decrypt it when I am planning to read it, or from the receiver's end they have to decrypt it. So I will require a second layer of protocol, and the email which is been typed and now encrypted needs to be sent to the receiver's end or to the delivery end through a proper channel. And to design this particular proper channel, we require a third protocol, as depicted in this particular diagram. It is layer 1. So this gives us an idea why we require multiple protocols during an complicated or complex communication. When communication is complex, we may need to divide the task between these layers. In this case, we need protocols at each layer, and that is the reason we have protocol layering. Reason for having a layered architecture or layered protocol. The process of establishing a link between two devices to communicate and share information is pretty complex. There are many functions which are to be taken into consideration to enable effective communication. To organize all these functions into coherent form, the designer felt that there is a need to develop a network architecture. In the network architecture, communication functions are grouped into related and manageable sets called as layers. A network architecture refers to a set of protocols that tells us how every layer is in function. The main aim of a layered architecture is to divide the design into small pieces. Each lower layer adds its services to the higher layers to provide a full set of services to manage communication and to run the application. It also provides modularity and clear interfaces. It ensures the independence between layers by providing the service from lower to higher layers without defining how the services are implemented. The basic element of layered architectures are services, protocols, and interfaces. In a layered architecture, layer n on one machine will have to communicate will have a communication with layer n on another machine, and the rules used in conversations are known as layer n protocols. Now that we know why protocol layering is required, let us look at the principles of protocol layering. There are basically two principles. The first principle says that the if we want a bidirectional communication, we need to make sure that each layer are able to perform two opposite tasks, and one out of which one should be in each direction. And the second principle says that the two objects under each layer at both sides should be identical in nature. Now let us try to understand both of these principles with the same example which was shown earlier. Let's assume that Maria wants to send an email to Anne. Now Maria types an message and it goes down from layer 3 to layer 2 where it gets encrypted. And when the message is received in Anne's direction or in the right hand side, what you can see, the message from layer 1 goes to the layer 2 where it gets decrypted and then it is sent to Anne. That is what is the first principle all about. Each layer should perform, when it is a bidirectional, each layer should perform two opposite tasks, one in each direction. The vice versa also is true. When Anne wants to send an email to Maria, when from layer 3 it comes to layer 2 on the right hand side, the message sent by Anne will get encrypted, and when it comes to the left hand side, to the Maria side, from layer 1 when it reaches layer 2, and from when layer 2 when it goes to Maria's computer, the message gets decrypted. Now let us try to understand the second principle with the same example. The two objects under each layers at both the sides should be identical in nature. If you see this three layered architecture over here, on the left hand side, where on the left hand side we have listen and talk, and even on the right hand side it is same, it is listen and talk. Whereas layer 2 is encryption and decryption in Maria's side, and encryption and decryption remains the same in Anne's side also. As well as in layer 1 of left hand side it is send or receive mail, and even on right hand side it is send or receive mail. Why do we require to maintain this principle too? Just take an example, the prominent network companies or device manufacturing companies. If these protocols or if these principles are not met, then each of these prominent companies will start developing their equipments or their devices based on their own architecture or on their own principle. And when these products are used in an internet, when these products are used in an internet, there might be compatibility issues. There might be many vendors with many architectures and there will be a compatibility issue. That is the reason there is a standard which has to be maintained in order to take up such kind of principles. And these standards are all the internet operators on globally accepted these standards for efficiency in the communication. And OSI model is introduced for this particular purpose by International Standard Organization. Now, continuation to the previous slide, the logical connection between the three layers is being depicted here. We have already discussed this in depth in the previous slide. So, in a three-layer architecture, all the three sides, all the protocols which we are following should be logically common. That is what is been meant in both the directions. Let us talk about OSI layer. I believe it's also been discussed in the future slides. OSI layer, has mentioned, it was established in 1947 by international standards. OSI model is introduced by ISO. It is a set of protocol that allows any two different systems to communicate regardless of underlying architecture. Basically, it has 7 layers, and these 7 layers are grouped in 3 subgroups. Now, let us try to list the 7 layers of OSI model. We start with the physical layer, that is the bottommost layer, and the physical layer in turn communicates with data link layer, followed by network layer. We have transport layer, above network layer, session layer, presentation layer, and the application layer. Now, a person, whatever you enter or whatever you feed into your system, that is where your application layer comes into picture, and then the data or whatever you have entered, input, whatever you have given into the system will migrate through different layers and reach the physical layer. And physical layer is the layer where it is connected to an Ethernet cable or a LAN cable from which your data is sent out. User support layer. The first 3 layers, that is the application, presentation, and session layers, are called as user support layer. These deals with the interportability amongst the unrelated software. So these are basically responsible for the for an end user. Transportation layer ensures a reliable data transmission, whereas the network support layer, that is the last 3, deals with the physical aspects of moving data from one device to another device. So these are the 4 layers of OSI model, and each and every networking company or each and every communication has to follow the standards set by OSI, approved by International Standard of Organization, International Standard Organization. In this particular slide, let us try to understand the OSI model in depth and whether it follows the principles as discussed earlier. OSI, as we know, stands for Open System Interconnect, and the diagram over here depicts device A sending a message to device B, and it strictly adheres and follows the 2 principles. The first principle is that it is bidirectional in nature, and the second principle is that both the sides of the protocol, in this case it is the left hand side where device A is there and the right hand side where device B are there, they are identical in nature. So this is, and the last, if you see, there is a physical communication, that is the link from device A to device B. It can be through internet or it can be through LAN. Now when we are using internet, there will be many hops or there will be many routers, switches, or other devices in between, which are shown in this particular diagram. Now let us talk about the bottommost layer, that is the physical layer. Physical layer, it coordinates the function of required to transmit a bit stream over a physical channel. Whatever data which is received from its above layer, that is data link layer, in the form of bits, it is transferred through this physical layer. It also deals with the mechanical and electrical properties of interface and the transmission medium. For example, the mechanical properties which kind of port is it using, whether it is using an optical port so that the transmission happens in an optical form, or whether it is using a wireless device for transmission to happen in a radio frequency form. And electrical property of the interface would be what is the voltage supply, whether it's a 5 volt or whether it's a 12 volt and so on. So these are the basic functionalities of an physical layer, where the data comes in bits from the top above layer and it is transmitted through a proper standard transmission medium. Along with this, the physical layer also takes care of the transmission rate, that is at which rate it is transferred, the physical topology and the bit synchronization. As we already know that data link layer supplies or gives an input to the physical layer, let us try to understand what is data link layer. The data link layer, in this layer it is responsible for sending a group of packets to adjacent node without any error. This is also called as node to node delivery. Now there are a lot of other responsibilities related to data link layer. Data link layer gives its inputs to the physical layer, whereas it receives inputs from the network layer. Now the other tasks which are performed in data link layers are framing, physical addressing, flow control, error control and access control. Now let us try to look at each of these functionalities. What is framing? We have in data, and the data will have some redundant data attached to it on both bit side. On the left hand side it will have something called as an header, and on the right hand side it will have something called as a trailer. So what is this header and what is this trailer? These are the two sets of data which are attached to your packet, so that when the packet is transmitted through a channel, it reaches an appropriate location. The second one, and under header we have addressing type, we have start of frame, we have quality control, and under the trailer we have error detection as well as frame stop. What is physical addressing? In the header we have a portion where we mention the address or the location from where this packet was generated, and we also mention the delivery address, that is the sender's address as well as the delivery address. This helps the packet to reach the particular destination without any challenges. Flow control helps the packet to flow without any congestion. Error control will help us understand whether the packet was corrupted or whether there was some kind of changes done in the packet. As well as the access control will help us understand who can access it or which device can access it. This is something about data link layer. Let us try to understand the third concept, that is network layering, or it is also called as POP to POP delivery, or we also sometimes we call it as node to node delivery. We will see why is it called so. Now let us take an example. We have system A, that is my system, and system B, that is the server for which I need an access, and I want to access google.com. In this case, once from my source system, that is system A, when I want to access my destination system, that is system B, the data link layer, or the packet which comes from the data link layer, will have the user's receiver the destination address as well. So the data link layer, and to move the data packet from A to D, there might be many intermediate systems like routers, switches, which are in connection. This is nothing but a mesh of lot of devices. Now the data link layer is responsible for sending the packet from location A to location B, but in network layer, the responsibility is to send the data from location A to location B without any interference. This is referred as source to destination delivery. Now, besides this, the other functionality of network layer logical addressing, that is nothing but assigning an IP address. You would have heard numbers like 192.168.10.1. These are IP addresses. And the second one is routing, which you have seen in this diagram. These intermediate systems which will check the packet and forward it to the next forward it to the destination through the shortest path. The next layer we were talking about is transport layer. Now before we go to transport layer, let us try to recall what we have discussed in the previous slide. The first one is data link layer. Data link layer is responsible for sending the data from node to node, packets from node to node delivery, whereas the network layer is also responsible to send data from end to end. The packet is sent from end to end, that is the source to destination delivery. But when we are talking about transport layer, it is not just sending the packet, it is delivering the entire message from the source to destination. So this is the difference between the data link layer, the network layer, and the transport layer. The transport layer is responsible for end-to-end delivery of the entire message and not only the packets or strings. So the other functionalities of transport layer is the service port addressing, that is from which port to which port the message should be passed on. Segmentation and reassembling. When we have a huge message, these messages are divided into number of packets or frames, and it is sent from the sender end to the receiver end. In the transportation layer, it is the responsibility of the transportation layer to collect all these segments or all these short packets, club them together and make it a sensible message as sent by the sender. The third one is connection oriented service and connection-less services. We will talk about this in future classes. And the last one is flow control and error control. The next layer is the session layer. The main function of this layer is to establish, maintain, synchronize the interaction between two connected nodes. The other functionalities are dialog control and synchronization. This is a very simple to understand concept. Now let's take an example that you are logged into your system and you want to connect to your banking server. Now because of the session layer and connection is established and channel is established between your system and the banking system with a threshold. Now what is this threshold? It is the minimum time the session will be active if there is no activity there. To give you a better understanding, you might have logged on to your banking server, and if you wait for another 5 to 6 minutes without any activity, the sessions automatically gets terminated and you need to re-log in once again. This activity is being controlled by session layer. Now, above session layer is the physical layer, and this is the topmost layer in OSI reference model. This layer is responsible for presenting the data in reliable format to an end user, as different applications uses different coding standards. Besides this, its other tasks are translations, encryption, decryption, and compression also. Another most important activity of presentation layer is presenting the data in a suitable form as per the device which you are using. Let's take an example. You are opening the website Canara Engineering College on your laptop. You are opening the same website on a tab or as well as in a mobile. Now the domain is the same, but as per your device, the presentation layer will support you and it will open the page accordingly. So these are basically the features of presentation layer. our presentation layer is application layer. This layer provides the end user interface for network applications, maybe such as mail, fund transfer, online shopping, etc. This is the layer where majority of the end user, that is a human being or a program, uses this, and this is about the presentation layer. So till now we have discussed all the seven layers of an OSI reference model. Transmission Control Protocol, Internet Protocol, or also called as TCP/IP suite, was created by Department of Defense, that is DoD. In this case, it is the original layer as per the slide, to ensure and preserve data integrity, as well as to maintain communication in the event of catastrophic war. So, it follows that if designed and implemented correctly, a TCP/IP network can truly be dependable. We'll begin by taking a look at the original layer, that is the DoD version of TCP/IP, and then compare this version with this version and its protocol with OSI reference model. The DoD or the original layer model basically basically is a condensed version of OSI model. It composed of four uh, instead of seven layer, unlike OSI. Those four layers are process and application layer, host to host layer. In this case, it is called as a transport layer, internet layer, and network access layer. A vast area of protocols combined in DoD model of process and application layer to integrate with various activities and duties spanning the focus of OSI corresponding top three layers, that would be the application layer, presentation layer, as well as the session layer. The process application layer defines protocols for node to node application communication and also to control user interface specifications. The host to host layer, that is the next layer, in this case it is also called as transport layer, is parallel in function of OSI transport layer, defining protocol for setting up level of transmission service for applications. It helps us to interact with the above layer, that is the application layer. It tackles issues such as creating reliable end-to-end communication and ensuring the error-free delivery of the data. It handles packet sequencing and maintaining data integrity. The third layer from the top, that is internet layer, corresponding to OSI network layer, designating the protocol relating to logical transmission of packets over the entire network. It takes care of addressing of host by giving them IP, that is internet protocol addresses, and it handles of routing packets among multiple networks. And the last layer, that is the fourth layer from the top in your DoD or original layer, that is network access layer, monitors the data exchange between host and the network. It is equivalent of data link layer and the physical layer of OSI model. A network access layer oversees hardware addressing and defines protocol for the physical transmission of the data. So in this particular diagram, we have understood, we have compared the original layer to TCP/IP layered architecture. We have already discussed the communication through internet in the previous slides, but as per your textbook, this is how the data is transmitted between source A to source uh, to destination B through different layers of OSI reference model, and it makes sure that all the principles, the two principles of OSI reference model or the two principles of communication of data are maintained. Same way, it is the identical objects as you see on both the ends, on the both the ends, on the left hand side or on the right hand side. The layers are logical it's a logical connection too. So this is an pictorial representation where it says that the application layer is in logical connection with the application layer of the destination. But in actual, whenever a source host wants to communicate to a destination host, an application layer has to follow all the OSI reference model, switch or hop through the different intermediate devices such as switches, routers with its applicable layers, and then it will reach the destination physical port, and then it goes upwards to the application layer. So this diagram tells you how logically each of these layers are interconnected. TCP/IP protocol suite and OSI reference model. In the diagram shown in the slide, on the left hand side you see the OSI reference model starting from bottom: physical layer, data link, network, transport, session, presentation layer, and application layer. When we are comparing it with the TCP suite, application, presentation, and session layers are clubbed together as application. uh, and under application we have many different protocols to be followed. The few of them are telnet, ftp, tftp, nfs, smtp, ldp, snmp, dns, or dhs sorry dhcp. So let us try to understand few of them as shown in the figure. The first one would be simple SMTP, that is simple mail transfer protocol. Uh, this is used basically to send mails, used as a spooled and queued method for email delivery. Once a message has been sent to a destination, the message is spooled to a device, usually a disk. The next one would be FTP. FTP stands for File Transfer Protocol. Is the protocol that actually lets us transfer files, and it can accomplish between any two machines using it. FTP is just not a protocol, it can also be an program. Let's look at the next one, a few of them. DNS. DNS stands for Domain Name Service. It is it is to resolve your host name challenges. Internet names such as, let's take an example, www.canaraengineering.com can be this is an IP address, but it has been given a domain name. You don't have to use a DNS. You can just type in the IP address of any device you want to communicate with. An IP address identifies the host on the network and internet as well. However, DNS was designed to make your life easy. The next one would be SNMP. SNMP stands for Simple Network Management Protocols, or Simple Network Management Protocols. Uh, it collects and manipulates valuable network information. It is basically is going to help you in smooth functioning of any of these protocol. It gathers data by pulling the devices on the network from the management stations at fixed and random intervals. It is a kind of supporting protocol. We also have uh, line printer, LPD. We can also talk more about your NFS, that is network file systems. The one which is shown in the diagram, that is Telnet. Telnet is a protocol. It is specifically it is a specialist in terminal emulations. It allows a user on the remote client machine called as Telnet client to access resources to another machine. So it helps us to access resources from any other machine using a Telnet server. At the transport layer, we will talk about TCP and UDP. TCP. that stands for Transmission Control Protocol, takes a large block of information from an application and breaks it into segments. It numbers and sequence each segment so that the destination TCP stack can put the segments back into the order, the application which it is intended to. After the segments are sent, TCP waits for the acknowledgement of the receiving end, and if any segment is not transmitted, it is re-sent back. The next one in the transportation layer of an OSI with respect to TCP IP is UDP, that is User Datagram Protocol. UDP uses a simple connectionless communication model with a minimum of protocol mechanism. UDP provides checksums for the data integrity and port numbers for addressing different functions at the source and the destination of the datagram. It has no handshake or acknowledgement concept like TCP. The next one is Internet Protocol, or also called as IP. Protocol essentially is in the Internet layer. There are many supporting protocols like ICMP, uh, IGNP, RARP, ARP, and Proxy ARP associated in this particular layer to support an IP. Let us try to understand what is ICMP. As discussed earlier, ICMP stands for Internet Control Message Protocol, works at a network layer and is used by IP for many different services. ICMP is a management protocol and messaging service provider for IP. The next one, let's look at Address Resolution Protocol, or also called as ARP. Address Resolution Protocol finds the hardware address of a host from a known IP address. How? When IP has a datagram to send, it must inform the network access protocol such as Ethernet or token ring of the destination hardware address on the local network. The third one, let's talk about RARP, that is Reverse Address Resolution Protocol. When an IP machine happens to be diskless machine, it has no way to initially know its IP address, but by using its MAC address, the RARP protocol discovers the identity of an IP address for a diskless machine by sending an packet that includes the MAC address and requests for specific IP address which is assigned to this particular MAC address. The next two layers, data link layer and physical layers, it's already been discussed in the previous slide. So collectively, in this particular slide, we have discussed about application, transport, and IP, followed by data link and physical layer of TCP/IP protocol suite. Let us look at Internet Protocol under Network Layer Protocol. In IP looks for each packet address, that is, using a routing table, it decides whether a packet is to be sent to the next, choosing the best path. The protocol of network access layer at the bottom of the OSI reference model doesn't possess IP. IP receives segments from host to host layers and fragments them into datagrams. If the IP then reassembles the datagrams back into segments on receiving side, each datagram is assigned the IP address of the sender as well as the recipient. Each router that receives the datagrams makes the routing decision based on the packet's destination IP address. So if you basically look at an IP header, there are a lot of components or lot of fields in it, like the version, that is which version this IP version number, header length, that is usually a 32-bit word, and whether priority or type of services, total length, and it also has a unique IP packet value. It also has the protocol like TCP or UDP which it is in use. It has a header checksum. We also call this as CRC. It will mention a 32-bit IP address, that is a source IP address, as well as a destination IP address, and then the data. So these are few of the fields which are there in an IP header. We have already discussed about all these supporting protocols, that is address resolution protocol, RARP, ICMP and IGMP in the previous slides. Just a quick overlook on addressing, how it happens in the layers. In an application layer, the packet name is always a message. When it goes to a transportation layer, it becomes a segment, and in the network layer, it's a datagram. Whereas when it reaches the data link layer or DLL layer, we call it as a frame. And but the transmission happens through a transmission channel only in bits. So these are few addressing concepts of TCP IP protocol. The last topic of this particular session is multiplexing and demultiplexing. Multiplexing and demultiplexing services are provided in almost every protocol architecture, every ever designed. UDP and TCP performs demultiplexing and multiplexing jobs by including two special fields in its header, that is the source port number field and destination port number field. Now, what is multiplexing? Multiplexing is gathering data from multiple application processes of sender, enveloping the data with header and sending them as a whole to the intended destination or intended receiver is called as multiplexing. Whereas in demultiplexing, delivering received the received segments are from the reverse side to correct app layer processor in is called as demultiplexing. I mean, whatever is been received, it is it is opened up and it is given to the receiver side. So multiplexing and demultiplexing are the services facilitated by the transport layer of an OSI reference model. So in this particular session, we have discussed about TCP IP protocol suites, which include layered architecture and description of each layer. We also discussed about OSI models with its TCP IP version.